We're always told that in business, size is everything, right? That these huge corporate giants with their bottomless pockets are just unbeatable. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that's just old news? Well, according to corporate leader Shiv Shivakumar, the real rules of the game have totally changed.
And this one quote, it just blows that whole idea right out of the water. It's not about David versus Goliath anymore, not in terms of sheer muscle.
Nope.
It's a race. Your ultimate weapon isn't how much money you have in the bank, it's how fast you can move. And that's the big idea we're going to dive into today.
So this brings us to what you could call the speed paradox. I mean, it feels like these massive companies should be all-powerful, doesn't it? But here's the twist. Their enormous size, the very thing that makes them seem so strong, actually creates their biggest weakness. And that weakness is a total, crippling inability to move fast. Let's figure out why.
I mean, the difference here is just staggering. Think about it. A huge company might take an entire year just to get one single idea approved. A year! In that exact same amount of time, a quick little startup can launch, test, fail, learn from it, pivot, and do it all over again, maybe 5 different times. They're running 5 experiments in the real world, while the big guy is still stuck in meetings. That's not just a small advantage, it's like they're playing a completely different game.
So the big question is, why? Why does this happen? What is it about these huge organizations that makes them so incredibly slow? Well, it all boils down to one thing: their internal culture.
Yeah, see, inside the walls of one of these corporate giants, this really strange dynamic starts to take over. It stops being about building cool new things or taking smart risks. The whole incentive system gets warped.
This is where it gets really wild. In a lot of these big companies, how do you get promoted? How do you get power? Not by championing a brilliant new idea. No. You get power by being the person in the room who can find every single reason why that new idea will fail. Saying no makes you look smart. It makes you look responsible. It makes you look powerful. And that, right there, is the absolute heart of the problem. When your entire culture rewards rejection, what do you think happens to innovation? It doesn't just slow down, it flat out dies. All that amazing creative energy that you see in a startup just gets crushed under the weight of bureaucracy and a never-ending chorus of no.
So what's feeding this culture of no? Well, it's a whole bunch of things. You've got the fear of reputational risk. Nobody wants to be the one whose project failed and made the company look bad. You've got this tendency to over-rationalize everything, where good ideas are just analyzed into oblivion. And then you get the personal biases. The classic excuse, my life didn't like it. Seriously. Throw in departments that don't talk to each other, and a genuine deep-seated fear of failure, and bam, you've got the perfect recipe for doing absolutely nothing. And look, this isn't just some business school theory, okay? This kind of paralysis has devastating real-world consequences. Let's just take a look at 2 giants, companies that were once thought to be completely untouchable, but they stumbled and ultimately they vanished, all because they just couldn't adapt. Oh man, Nokia and BlackBerry. These are just textbook examples. Nokia's downfall? Pure ego. They chose the Windows OS over Android, which was just a massive, massive strategic mistake. But BlackBerry's story might be even more tragic. They literally had the future in their hands with BlackBerry Messenger, BBM. It was the original WhatsApp. But they were so focused on being an email machine for suits that they were completely blind to the fact they'd accidentally created a billion-dollar social network. They had it, and they just let it go. All right, so enough about why the giants fall. We get it. The real question is, if you're a startup, how do you actively use these weaknesses against them? It's time to get into the playbook. The strategy here is actually pretty simple, and it breaks down into 3 key parts. First, weaponize your speed. I mean it. You need to be launching and learning while the big company is still trying to schedule its first meeting about the meeting. Second, prioritize people. Forget the old idea that capital is the scarce resource. It's not. Today, top-tier talent, that's the rare commodity. And third, hire to scale. This is so important. If your goal is to be a $100 million company, you can't hire people whose experience tops out at $10 million. You need to bring in people who've already reached that next level. They know the shortcuts, they know the traps, and they basically bring the map with them. And really, if you take away just one thing, let it be this. Capital is everywhere today. It's available. But a truly great team that can execute, that's gold. As a founder, building that team, that is your #1 job. Period. Okay, so let's say you've got your fast-moving team, you've got a great idea, you're ready to go.
But remember, the battle is ultimately won or lost with the consumer. And to win that battle, you have to deeply, truly understand what makes them tick. So let's take a look at a really dynamic and complex market, like India, to see what this looks like in practice.
It's pretty fascinating because every market is different. You look at the US and there's this massive return-focused culture. In China, it's all about getting incredible innovation but at a really good price. But in a market like India, the consumer is super demanding. And what do they want above all else? Value. They want to feel like they got a fantastic deal, a real bargain.
And this insight leads us to a really powerful kind of game-changing concept. You've heard of the unique selling proposition, or USP, right? Well, forget that for a second. In societies where social status is a huge driver, what's way more powerful is the unique show-off preposition. This has nothing to do with what your product does. It's all about what owning it says about the person who bought it. It's the built-in brag factor. It's the social currency, the story they get to tell.
Think about it. People aren't just buying a product. They're buying a status marker. That phone, that vacation, that shirt, they're all things people can subtly or not so subtly brag about. They're buying social signals. And if your product doesn't give your customers something to show off, honestly, you're missing a massive piece of the puzzle. Okay, so let's put all this together. We know the big guys are slow. We know what motivates the consumer. So, where are the real, untapped opportunities hiding right now? Let's get practical and look at a few places to start.
So what's hot right now? Where's the growth? Well, anything in the high protein and healthy food space is just exploding. Any solution that saves people time, huge demand. And look, people are willing to pay a premium for three things: wellness, solutions that address women's challenges, and premium products for their kids. These are the exact kinds of niches where the big, slow companies just can't keep up.
And as you're thinking about all these niches, I want you to remember this one last piece of advice. It's so easy for founders to get obsessed with raising capital, but that's backwards. Your real obsession should be the idea. Search for a great idea, not for capital. Because if you build something that truly provides value, something that solves a real problem, trust me, the capital will follow. So let's wrap this up. I'm going to leave you with a question to chew on. For your idea, your business, forget for just 1 second what your product does, and instead ask yourself this: what does it allow your customer to show? What's the brag-worthy story it gives them to tell their friends? Because in today's world, that might just be the single most important question you can answer.